Adam Silver just stepped into the Caitlin Clark conversation, and what he said changes the entire tone around the WNBA. Because this is no longer just a debate about one foul, one missed call, or one frustrated fanbase. Silver said Caitlin Clark has unfairly become a political football, and whether people agree with him or not, that statement tells you something important. The Caitlin Clark story has become bigger than basketball, bigger than officiating, and bigger than one game. But here is the uncomfortable part. If the league keeps saying this is only noise from the outside, why are so many athletes, fans, analysts, and now even major basketball figures talking about the same issue? Why does every Caitlin Clark incident turn into a national argument? And why does it feel like the WNBA still has no clean answer for the pressure that follows her everywhere? This is the real story today. Adam Silver did not just defend Caitlin Clark. He exposed the size of the problem around her. The WNBA is trying to manage a superstar who brings historic attention, but that same attention is forcing every foul, every whistle, every suspension, every comment, and every teammate reaction into the spotlight. And that is exactly why Sophie Cunningham's role has become so interesting too. Because while the league tries to explain the politics, the officiating, and the public anger, Sophie has become the one player fans see as standing next to Caitlin in the middle of the storm. That is why this is not just a Caitlin Clark controversy. This is a league identity crisis. The reason Adam Silver's comment matters is because he is not a random commentator yelling on social media. He is the NBA commissioner. He understands what happens when a player becomes bigger than a league's normal operating system. He has seen what superstar attention can do. He has seen what happens when one athlete starts pulling casual fans, advertisers, networks, and critics into the same conversation. So when Silver says Caitlin Clark has become a political football, he is not just talking about one online debate. He is talking about the way Clark is now being used by different groups to argue about the WNBA. Race, officiating, media coverage, physicality, popularity, jealousy, protection, and respect all at once. That is why this situation is so complicated. Caitlin Clark is not only a basketball player anymore in the public conversation. She is a symbol. For some people, she represents growth. For some people, she represents unfair media attention. For some people, she represents the future of the league. For others, she represents everything they believe the league is handling badly. And that is exactly the problem. Once a player becomes a symbol, every normal basketball moment becomes charged. A hard foul is not just a hard foul. A missed call is not just a missed call. A suspension is not just discipline. A quote from a coach is not just a quote. Everything becomes evidence for someone's argument. The WNBA wanted the Caitlin Clark effect. It wanted the ratings, the sold-out buildings, the merchandise attention, the national conversation, and the casual fans. But the problem is, you cannot take the attention and then act surprised when that attention demands answers. That is the tension Silver just walked into. The biggest issue underneath all of this is player safety. Fans are not only reacting because Caitlin Clark is famous. They are reacting because many of these moments look physical, awkward, or unnecessary. And when the whistle does not come immediately, the reaction becomes even stronger. The Alyssa Thomas incident became a major flashpoint because contact to Clark's neck area was not fully handled in real time, and the league had to review it later. That delay matters. Not because every review is corrupt, but because delayed accountability creates distrust. When fans feel like the league only acts after pressure builds, they start believing the system is reactive instead of protective. This is where the WNBA has to be careful. The league cannot allow the public to believe that its biggest star is only protected after social media gets angry. That perception is dangerous. It creates a cycle where every physical moment becomes a trial. First, the clip goes viral. Then fans accuse the referees. Then the league responds, or stays quiet. Then players receive harassment. Then the conversation becomes toxic. Then the original basketball issue gets buried under politics, race, threats, and outrage. That is exactly the kind of cycle Silver seems worried about. But here is the part the league cannot ignore. Saying the conversation has become political does not erase the original basketball concern. Both things can be true. Caitlin Clark can be unfairly used in a larger culture war, and the WNBA can still have a real officiating and player safety problem. One does not cancel the other. The reason many fans are not satisfied is because they feel the league is always one step late. They do not want statements after the controversy explodes. They want control before it becomes a national fight. They want consistent whistles. They want clear standards. They want the same physicality rules applied before a clip gets millions of views. And they want to know that Caitlin Clark is not being treated as a marketing asset on one hand and a normal player on the other hand. That contradiction is the heart of the issue. The WNBA benefits from Caitlin's popularity. It promotes her games. It sells the attention. It uses the star power. But when the attention turns into criticism, the league seems uncomfortable with the scale of the conversation. That is not sustainable. If Caitlin Clark is important enough to be one of the faces of the league, then the league must also be ready for the pressure that comes with protecting the integrity of her games. And this is not about giving Caitlin special treatment. That argument is too simple. The real issue is whether the league has a consistent standard for physical play around all stars, especially when the entire basketball world is watching. Superstars in every league get hit, they get tested, they get targeted, but elite leagues survive because they make the line clear. The WNBA's problem is that the line often feels unclear to fans. This is exactly why Sophie Cunningham has become such a powerful character in the Caitlin Clark era. Sophie is not the biggest star on the Fever. She is not the face of the league. But she has become important because fans see her as someone who understands the emotional temperature around Caitlin. She brings edge. She brings attitude. She brings the kind of presence that says, Indiana is not going to let Caitlin stand alone in every confrontation. That matters, because fans are not only watching basketball anymore. They are watching relationships. They are watching body language. They are watching who helps Caitlin up. They are watching who talks after hard contact. They are watching who looks angry, who looks passive, and who looks ready to respond. Sophie Cunningham benefits from that, because her personality matches the moment. She does not feel like a quiet background teammate. She feels like someone who belongs inside the controversy. This is why the Sophie protector angle works. It is not just because fans like drama. It is because every superstar needs a public sense of support. Caitlin Clark has the skill, the records, the attention, and the pressure. But the Fever also need players who can absorb some of the emotional burden around her. Sophie gives the audience a character who feels like a shield, even when the league is still trying to explain itself. The WNBA's real problem is not that Caitlin Clark is controversial. The real problem is that the league has not built a strong enough public framework for how to handle the Caitlin Clark era. This era is different. The audience is bigger. The social media reaction is faster. The political commentary is louder. The number of casual fans is higher. The pressure on referees is greater, and the scrutiny on players is harsher than ever. That means the old communication style is not enough. Quiet reviews, vague statements, and delayed discipline will not calm the situation anymore. The league needs to be clearer, faster, and more consistent. Not because Caitlin deserves different rules, but because the entire league now operates under a different spotlight. When attention multiplies, accountability has to multiply too. Silver's comment about Caitlin becoming a political football should be heard as a warning. If the WNBA does not define the basketball conversation, outside voices will define it instead. If the league does not explain its standards, fans will create their own theories. If the league does not control player safety narratives, every hard foul will become evidence of a bigger conspiracy. And once that happens, nobody wins. Caitlin does not win. Her opponents do not win. The league does not win. Even the fans do not win. Because the sport becomes secondary to the argument. The easiest mistake is to reduce this whole story to one Alyssa Thomas incident. That moment mattered, but this conversation did not start and end there. It is part of a larger pattern, where Caitlin Clark's games feel like events, and every event creates a new argument about what the league is doing right or wrong. That is what makes her situation unique. There are other stars. There are other great players. There are other hard fouls. But Caitlin Clark brings a level of attention where every moment becomes national content. That is why some people are frustrated with the conversation. They feel Caitlin receives too much attention. But that frustration does not change reality. The audience is here. The cameras are here. The ratings are here. The sponsors are here. The political commentators are here. The casual fans are here. The WNBA cannot wish that away. It has to manage it. And managing it means understanding that Caitlin Clark is not just another player in terms of public impact. Basketball-wise, she still has to earn everything on the floor. But business-wise, media-wise, and attention-wise, she has already changed the environment around the league. That is why a single foul can become a national story. That is why a quote from Adam Silver becomes major news. That is why Sophie Cunningham standing next to her becomes part of the brand. This is the new WNBA reality. For Indiana, the message is simple. They cannot rely on the league alone to manage Caitlin Clark's environment. The Fever have to build the right roster, the right attitude, and the right public identity around her. That does not mean starting fights. It does not mean chasing drama. It means making sure Caitlin is not isolated physically, emotionally, or strategically. That is where Sophie Cunningham becomes valuable again. She gives Indiana something that is hard to measure in a box score. She gives them tone, she gives them edge, she gives fans the feeling that someone is paying attention. In a normal team, that might be a small thing. In the Caitlin Clark era, it is a huge thing, because every game feels like a referendum. Every reaction becomes a clip. Every teammate becomes part of the story. The Fever do not just need talent around Caitlin. They need personalities who can survive the spotlight. They need players who do not shrink when the conversation gets ugly. They need people who understand that playing next to Caitlin means playing inside a storm. Sophie understands that better than most. So when Adam Silver says Caitlin Clark has become a political football, he is right about one thing. This conversation has gone far beyond basketball, but the league cannot use that as a reason to avoid the basketball questions underneath it. Why do fans feel Caitlin is not protected enough? Why does every hard foul turn into a national debate? Why does the league seem reactive instead of ahead of the story? And why does a player like Sophie Cunningham suddenly become so important simply because fans feel Caitlin needs someone standing beside her? That is the real warning. The Caitlin Clark era is forcing the WNBA to grow up in public. The league is bigger now. The audience is louder now. The money is bigger now. The criticism is harsher now. And the old way of handling controversies may not be enough anymore. Caitlin Clark did not create every problem in the WNBA, but she has made those problems impossible to hide. Adam Silver's comment did not end the debate. It proved how big the debate has become. And if the WNBA wants to control the future of this conversation, it has to do more than tell people to stop arguing. It has to show consistency. It has to show leadership. It has to show that player safety is not decided by viral clips. And Indiana has to keep building a team that makes Caitlin Clark feel protected, not just promoted. Because right now, the rest of the basketball world is watching, and the message is becoming clear. Caitlin Clark is not just changing the WNBA with her game. She is exposing whether the league is ready for the spotlight she brought with her.